Okay, Mr. Osborne back again for session 4. You can see my hair's all over the place today, and I managed to do a whole recording without pressing record on it. I was just going to show you this. I'm not sure if you can see this. Check that out. That's known as a Game Boy. That's retro gaming right there. I found it in my cupboard earlier. So session 4, as I said, let's have a look. Let's get going. I've not got a big screen today. I really want to get session 4 underway. So you will need a pencil, paper, and a ruler if you have one. Always mentions about ruler. If you don't have one, you don't need to worry, but it's nice to keep our work nice and neat. Have a look at this. Get ready for a warm-up. Complete this diagram so that the 3 numbers on each line are adding up to 150. Okay, now it's a warm-up. Okay, so I reckon you should take about maybe a minute and a half to do this. Pause it, come back and see me. Okay, just make sure I'm just double checking I'm recording because I didn't record earlier. Okay, so let's have a look. This is a classic SAT style question here. So I'm going to choose to add the 40 and 80. So I'm going to add the 40 and 80, which will give me 120. And then I've got my 150, take away my 120. Therefore, that should be 30 into that circle. Now I know that. I think I'm going to add my 50 to my 30, which would give me 80. I'm going to take that away from 150, give me a remainder of 70 to go in that circle. And then finally, you can either choose to do 90 or 40. I'm going to do 60 and 70, which would give me 130. And then I have 150, take away 130, leaves me with 20 in that circle. Okay, hope you're tapping yourself on the back right now and your brain is fully warmed up and ready for this session. We're going to be learning to compare and order fractions less than 1. Okay, now all of the fractions work you've done up to here so far will help with that. So you're simplifying fractions, looking at equivalent fractions, they will help to be able to compare and order fractions. Okay, let's go a bit more into that. Got an animation there, okay, by discussing it in our vocabulary. Obviously, we always look at our key vocabulary. We have our numerator and we have our denominator. The denominator is how many parts our whole has been divided into, okay. Now, you know this by now because I show you every time, but it's key that we remember this. We have one whole pizza that's been divided into 4. And our numerator is how many equal parts we have. And you can see we have 3 equal parts there. We've discussed proper fractions. We looked at equivalent fractions in previous sessions. I want to just focus here. What does simplifying a fraction mean? Well, we've already looked at that really. A fraction in its simplest form. Okay, that may help us out today. Okay, but let's get moving into the learning. Okay, so today's learning to accurately, sorry, I can't say it, accurately compare and order fractions, they need to have the same denominator. So if I was to look in amongst all of these fractions here, pick out 3 fractions that have the same denominator, quite simply 2/3, 1/3, and 3/3, okay? With a fraction that has the same denominator, it's quite simple to order these fractions because you simply look at the numerator and the numerator with the greatest number is the greater fraction. So there we have 3/3, which we'll know would be a whole. Okay, 1/3, 2/3, and 3/3. Ordered nice and easy there for you. Okay, so let's have a look. So to find the common denominator, multiply fractions to make the denominators the same. So times table knowledge is going to be a key factor in today's learning. Just going to say to you, if you're not confident in your times tables, write them down. Okay, and then outside of this session, make sure you're learning your times tables. Compare the numerators. If the numerator is bigger and the fraction is bigger. Okay, wonderful. Let's have a look at this together. So looking at comparing fractions with different denominators. So here I've got 7/9 and I've got 6/8 and it says complete the statement to show which is the greater fraction. Okay, I want to show which is the greater fraction. So to do that, I'm going to find the common denominator. Okay, multiply the fraction to find the same denominator. So you know what the denominator is of these two numbers. We have 9 and we have 8. Okay, if you're unsure of your times tables where these two would meet, okay, write your times tables out. Okay, so then we can be absolutely sure. So I've written my 9 times tables out here. I can see I have 72. I've got my 8 times tables here, and I have 72 as well. Okay, so 8 times 9 gives me 72, and then here we go. 8 times 9 gives me 72, as I just said. So our new denominator will be 72. Okay, 8 times 9 is going to give me 72. Okay, 9 times 8 will give me 72. So now these two numbers will have the same denominator. Now, as I've said previously, is hugely important that whatever you do to the denominator, you're doing to the numerator as well. Okay, so here we had our 9 times 8. So I'll be carrying out my 7 times 8 and my 6 times 9 to give me 7 times 8 and 6 times 9. Just a nice animation for you. Okay, and that gives us 56 over 72, and it gives us 54 over 72. Now, all of a sudden, comparing these two fractions has become a whole lot easier. Okay, now let's go back to this page. So we were asked to complete the statement, compare the numerators. If the numerator is bigger than the fraction is bigger, I wanted to know which was the greater fraction. It's quite clear to see that we have 56 over 72. So you could confidently say that 7/9 is a greater fraction than 6/8. And you can just see in the blue, I've written down our original fractions there, they're equivalent fractions. Okay, so they've got the same value. We learned that in equivalent fractions before. Okay, so that's enough of me doing things. Have a go at this. Okay, take your time. I've just put there the steps that we went through. 5/7, have a go at completing the statement. Show the greater fraction. Okay, 5/7 and 4/5. Pause the video there, come back to me in a few minutes, and we'll go through the answers together. Okay, you should be back. Let's have a look. So which is the greater fraction? So we're going to take both fractions. I'm going to write out my times tables here. Okay, if I'm unsure, so I can see that 7 times 5 is 35 and 5 times 7 is 35. So there are our common denominators, and this is what I shall do. 7 times 5 gives us 35, and 5 times 7 gives us 35. As I mentioned before, and I hope you've done this, okay, you would multiply the numerator exactly by what you are multiplying the denominator by. So we have 5 times 5 and 4 times 7. 5 times 5 will give us 25, and 4 times 7 will give us 28. Now we're in a good position where we can compare these fractions. So we have 25 over 35, we have 28 over 35, and as you can see, I've put our original fractions down, so 5/7 and 4/5, and you're in a good position to tell me that 28 over 35 or 4/5 is a greater fraction than 5/7. Okay, nothing to it really, comparing these fractions. Let's move on to ordering these fractions from smallest to largest. Now, the good news is when we're going to order the fractions, it is exactly the same process. We're looking to find the lowest common denominator, okay, to then be able to compare and order the fractions. So here we go. We've got 5/6, a half, and then 4/9. Okay, now I know because of my times table knowledge that all of these numbers will fit into 18 at some point. So I've highlighted 18 here. So 6 times 3 will give us 18. I definitely know 2 times, oh, sorry, got to do my numerator, Mr. Osborne. Remember, so we got 6 times 3 with the denominator, and then 5 times 3 with our numerator. Okay, then moving on. Okay, so what have we got? So I've done my times tables there, 9. So 2 times 9 will give us 18, and then obviously not forgetting this time, the numerator 1 times 9 will give us 9/18. And then finally, we have 9/18, so we only need to multiply these by 2. So 9 times 2 will give us 18, and then 4 times 2 will give us 8/18. Okay, now we have the same common denominators run along the bottom. It is far easier to order these fractions, and on this next page we have 8/18, 9/18, and 15/18. Okay, I've put the original fractions below there so you can see that the order of our original fractions. So 4/9 is a smaller fraction than a half, and then 5/6 is the greatest fraction of them all. Okay, let's have you have a go at this. Have a look at those fractions, put those fractions in order that we just did. Put those fractions into order from smallest to largest, okay, and then we'll come back and go through it together. Pause the video right there. Okay, so you're back. So I was just checking the time. You're back and ready to go through the order of these fractions. So I can see what you're telling me. You said, first of all, you moved on to the next slide. Okay, so Mr. Osborne was being quite kind to you because you can see that these fractions, actually there is a common denominator within the fractions that's already written out, and we can see that is 12. Okay, so with this we can keep this fraction the same, so 12 times 1 and 9 times 1 obviously, so we have 9/12. We don't have to do anything to that. Okay, then we have 3/6. Now I know you're a great mathematician, so you would be able to tell me that we need to do 6 times 2 and 3 times 2, which gives us 6/12. And then finally, we're going to have 3 times 4, and we're going to have our numerator times 4, which gives us 4/12. I'm hoping you've got that. Just double check. Okay, and then we'll move on so you can have a look how you got on. 4/12, 6/12, and 9/12. And the original fractions there, if you wanted to place them in order. Okay, so we have 1/3, 3/6, our greatest fraction there, 9/12. Okay, I hope you managed to get your way through that with absolutely no worries whatsoever. Okay, I know we had quite a quick session there of running through comparing and ordering, but I'm sure year 6 of your great times table knowledge that you're not finding this a problem. So independent task 1, compare these fractions, use the following symbols to make the statement true. Okay, I'm looking for the greater fractions here. Okay, so see if you can show me the greater fraction, unless it's something different. Okay, then I'm going to ask you to do task 2, which will be to order the fractions from smallest to largest. Okay, so we're going to have A, there we've got 7/8, half, 3/4 and 5/16, and then B we got 3/5, 4/7, 15/35 and 4/5. And then finally, great picture of cake here. Would you rather 14/20 or would you rather 3/4 of the cake? And I'm going to presume you want the largest piece of the cake. Okay, so have a go at these. Pause the video there, take your time, get everything down, come back, and we will work through these together, and then fingers crossed your hard work has paid off. Okay, you're back. There's no pause for Mr. Osborne, it's always strange. Okay, so let's compare these fractions. So we have 5/20 and 3/10. Okay, I know exactly what you're telling me because you're good at your times tables. That 10s will go into 20, so our lowest common denominator right there is going to be a 20. So we have 5/20. We don't need to change that, and then we just need to multiply our 10 by 2 to give us the 20 and the 3 by 6. So here, to make this statement true, which is the greater fraction, it is 3/10. Okay, and let's have a look at this. In B, we have 5/8 and 6/7. Now, 8 and 7 times tables can be tricky for some people. So you may want to write your times tables down. Okay, if you're uncertain, get it down. Okay, as you move on through year 6, you'll definitely become more efficient. Okay, but keep practicing your times tables. Okay, so here we can see that we've got 56 as our lowest common denominator. So 7 times 8 is going to give me 56, and 6 times 8 is going to give me 48. 8 times 7 is going to give me 56, and 5 times 7 will give me 35. Therefore, 6/7 is a far greater fraction than 5/8. And then finally, looking at C, you may have noticed this is slightly different. We have our lowest common denominator as 16ths there, because we know 4 goes into 16ths. So we're going to multiply this 3/4 by 4 to give us that 16th. So 12 over 16. And then we can see actually those two fractions are equal. Fantastic. Let's move on to independent task 2. Just looking at A, all of these fractions from smallest to largest. Now, I'm hoping in this you recognize that we have our lowest common denominator in one of our fractions, which would have been 5/16. Okay, which makes life nice and easy, because 7/8, we know we're just going to need to multiply by 2 to change that to 16ths, which gives us 14 over 16. Okay, our half, we know that 2 times 8 will give us 16, so 1 times 1 will give us 8 over 16. And then again, 3/4, we're going to need to multiply that by 4 to give us 12 over 16. And then 5/16 remains the same. Let's have a look at the order of them. 5/16, 8/16, 12/16, and then 14/16, which is our largest. And then just below in the blue, I've written down the original fractions. Okay, take a good look at that. Hopefully you managed to work your way through that, and that's absolutely fine. Let's have a quick look at B. Okay, so we have 3/5, 4/7, 15 35ths, and 4/5. Okay, I'm looking there and I can definitely see a relationship between those denominators, and I can see, definitely know, and you would know, and hopefully you've shown that 5 definitely goes into 35 and 7 goes into 35 as well. So our lowest common denominator is already evidenced there. Okay, so what do we need to do to this fraction? Well, 5 times 7 will give us 35, and then 3 times 7 will give us 21. I've written out timetable here. You may not need it, have needed to, and that's fantastic. Okay, 7 times 5 is going to be to give us 35, and 4 times 5 to give us 20. And then finally, we have the 4/5. Here we go. 5 times 7 again, and 4 times 7 gives us 28. I don't need to do anything to the 15th, 15 over 35, because that's our lowest common denominator already. Now, all that leaves us to do is order these fractions. So we have 15 over 35, 20 over 35, 21 over 35, and 28 over 35. And there I've written the original fractions again, just so you know. Take a look. Give yourself a tick and a big pat on the back. I'm sure that you did absolutely fine. And that moves us on to this gigantic chocolate cake that looks amazing and makes me rather hungry. Would you rather 14/20 or 3/4 of the same cake? I'm going to presume you want the big section of the cake, so the largest section you could possibly have. So we know that 4s go into 20. So I'm quite confident. I've just written out my multiplications of 4 there, and I can see that goes into it 5 times. So down here, let's do this. 4 times 5 will give us 20, and then 3 times 5 will give us 15. I hope you've worked that out. So we can confidently say that 3/4 or 3 over 4 is a larger section of that cake. It's larger than 14/20. Okay, and you could say I'd rather have 3/4 of the cake because it is the largest piece, and I'd absolutely agree with you. I would want the largest piece as well. Okay, well done. Okay, I know, felt like a quick session tonight, but some really good learning going on there. Really good. So quick recap. We compared fractions at the beginning. We were looking how we had to find the lowest common denominator using our multiplications. And remember what Mr. Osborne said, if you need to, write it down. As you go through the year, you'll become much more efficient and you won't need to write it down. Okay, and that will be fantastic. We ended with ordering fractions. Okay, and I can just hear the doorbell going off because that must be the Tesco's man. So I'm going to say next time we're going to compare fractions greater than 1. Take care. Thank you for tuning in. I've been Mr. Osborne. Goodbye.